Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. Today, I'm talking about 7 top tricks for a better flight experience with kids. Before getting into the episode, a quick reminder that if you have not tried out the Prep Dish meal plans, you can head to prepdish.com/mpm to try 2 weeks for free. We will send you a grocery list, a menu. All of your meals are done. You don't have to think about them. We will also introduce you into the concept of meal prep and how to spend 1 or 2 hours getting all of your meals prepped for the week. Makes mealtime quick, easy, and stress-free. So head to prepdish.com/mpm if you want to try out those for 2 weeks for free. Okay, so tricks for flying with kids. So I'm trying to think how to intro this exactly. We just got off of 2 different flights. Both of those went really well. And I was just going to talk through and even my husband would say that. So we do this thing where we travel and afterwards I'm always like, oh, it went great. And he's like, yeah, you blocked off all of the this meltdown and this tantrum and this thing. And, I think after we're through it, I always think, I have this bright, rosy picture and forget the reality that is, traveling with kids. But this one, I think even he would agree, they really did good on both of these trips. So I just jotted down some of the reasons why I think that these flights went so well. So number 1 is just age and experience. So, my kids have gotten older. So on this flight, there's a 4.5-year-old and almost 3-year-old. But I think, just with getting older, it's a little bit easier, and even with the 3-year-old, that may not sound like an older age to travel, but we also already had experience traveling with the 3-year-old because the 4.5-year-old was once 3. So none of it's new for us anymore. And then, experience, they have done a lot of flying. I also think we have done multiple really long flights or multiple layover flights. So having that in our experience, it makes these flights seem easier by comparison. So you might want to consider doing a really long, hard flight, like something to last summer we took them to Europe. And so after doing that, I think other flights in comparison just feel a lot easier, which leads into number 2, which is finding a direct flight. And then also trying to avoid a time change. Now, avoiding the time change, obviously, if your location is set, you cannot do that. But for one of our trips that we recently did, it was to Panama. And one of the reasons I ended up choosing that as a location is they were in the same time zone as us. And it just made things a lot easier. There was a direct flight with no time change. So if you're kind of in the early stages of looking up a place to travel to, finding something that has a direct flight and no time change would be a good place to start. And, you might think so we fly out of Austin, and it's actually harder than you might think to find direct flights. There's a lot of places that we fly to where there are not direct flights. So when I can find those, I definitely make note of that and put that on the short list for potential places to visit. It just helps things go a lot easier. I'd rather have one longer flight than multiple shorter flights. And then again, no time change makes a big difference as well. Okay. Number 3, this was actually just a really good find that I found actually, and I ended up finding it in 2 spots. So right before we left, I had my husband drop me off at, I think it's Walgreens, one of the little, CVS probably has it too, but there were these Melissa and Doug coloring books, but instead of using coloring, you just use one. So the first one I found was a water pen. So you fill it with water and then they just paint and the colors appear. And especially for this age, my boys do like to color with, different crayons and stuff, but just having only one pen, of course, is a lot easier than having lots of multiple colors and things would appear. I found one then later at the airport that was very similar concept. I think still Melissa and Doug, but instead of a water paintbrush, you just use a special pen. And the one with the special pen, it would like uncover things. So you would have to color it in and then it would uncover like a dinosaur egg or whatever it is. And both of my boys ended up really, really loving that. So I found those were very appropriate for both ages. And, they were able to do it independently, but then also we kind of did as an activity where I uncovered it and we had to like find the different things. And that definitely ended up being a good chunk of our time. So would highly recommend looking into those. I actually don't think, especially for younger kids, I don't know that you always need a ton of like activities. It's good to have a few things in your back pocket that you can pull out. That leads me into number 4, which is new toys. I think just something, and it doesn't even have to be new, but like a toy that maybe I try and like let them choose a toy that they want to take with them. But then I also try and have something that I pack that I don't tell them about that I can just pull out and kind of surprise them with. Sometimes it'll be new. Sometimes it'll just be something I didn't tell them I brought. The other thing, which is why I had them stop at Walgreens, was to pick up some stickers. Just, a few sheets of stickers are really easy to keep there in my purse and pull those out and they can, play with those. Just kind of a quick, easy one to have on hand. And then the number 5 one is books. So my boys are really used to reading a lot. And so I try and again, like I let them have some input into, what books you want to bring. But then I also, of course, have the preference over the soft-sided books that you can slip in really easily. I will say on our trip to Panama, I had probably 5 or I don't know, like a handful of books, and we pulled them out. We read all of them. And then, oh gosh, over halfway through the flight, we decided there were some empty rows in the back, and we asked the flight attendant, and they said yes, that we could switch seats because we'd split up 2 and 2, and both of our rows we had a third person, whereas there were empty rows in the back. So they said we could move and have our entire rows to ourselves. So we ended up switching seats, and in that process, we ended up leaving our books on the plane. So actually didn't have books for the plane ride home. We did just fine, but unfortunately left a bunch of books on the plane, but those are a good way to pass some time as well. Number 6 are headphones, and that's for if there is, so we don't do screens. I know some people, especially for flights, will save extra screen time for flights. I'm not opposed to screen time on flights, especially longer flights. I think it's really hard as they get older to not, everyone else around them is doing that. Our first flight to Panama, there was no screen, but they did have, one of those plugs into the headrest that had music. So my oldest listened to music a lot with his headphones. And then on the way back, there was a screen. And so they were able to watch, part of a movie there. But just having some headphones so that they can do that is helpful depending on your, approach to screens and all of that. And then the number 7 one is snacks, snacks, and snacks. I always overpack snacks. I will sometimes pack snacks outside of the snack bag just so that way midway through the flight, I can pull out a new option if, the snacks within the bag are being, protested for whatever reason. But I just find kind of the more snacks, the better. And this includes even for me, like going there, we looked it up ahead of time and said that I, wanted a gluten-free meal. We'd asked at the gate before we boarded if they did have, in fact, a gluten-free meal on board. And they reassured us that, yes, they did. And then, of course, we get on the flight and they acted like they had no idea what we were talking about when I asked for the gluten-free meal. So it's always good to have extra snacks, especially on longer flights, just to make sure that, if you can't get a meal or, whatever, for whatever reason, planes always need extra snacks. So that is that's number 7 on my list, but perhaps the top trick there. And I would include water under that as well. I try and make sure we all have water bottles and get those filled. Sometimes it can take a while before water service happens. So that's number 7 there. Those are my tips, but I think I would just end with also just, don't stress too much, right? Like there's only so much that you can control. I think, yes, having a few fun activities and things that you can pull out to do are great, but when you get on there, there's always, you can sit, you can look at the cloud, there's other activities that just kind of naturally occur while you're on the flight. And so I don't think you need to go too overboard in terms of distractions and activities and such, and trying to fit in a nap time and things like that are always good activities as well. So, anyway, I think just being able to go into it with an open mind, knowing that I also think the more you go into it and you've had kids and you've had rough flights, you kind of learn to, I don't know, just kind of roll with it a little bit and understand that anyone around you that has kids, if you do have a kid that's having a hard time, other people on the flight, they get it. And if not, you're never going to see them again. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can only do the best that you can do, and just don't stress about it too much. It's relatively speaking, a short period of time. So those are my tips for handling flights. The last bonus I will leave you with is just, again, like Panama City, put it on your radar if you are looking for locations to travel with kids. Panama Canal was actually more fun and exciting than I thought it would be to actually see the ships crossing and going through the whole process. You can take a little boat ride out to a place called Monkey Island where the monkeys eat from your hands, which was really cool and exciting. And so just a lot of fun activities that are appropriate for all ages, a lot of learning opportunities. They speak Spanish in Panama, so that also was an opportunity for, if you listened episodes past where I talked about, we're trying to incorporate some Spanish learning into our mornings. And so this was a great opportunity for the boys to work, and myself as well, to work on our Spanish skills. So it was definitely a good spot that I would recommend. Okay, that is all I have for today's episode. A quick reminder that if you are looking for time-saving meal plans, if you want us to plan out your meals for you, head to prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday, and you can give it a try for 2 weeks, see if it's a fit. If not, cancel. No, you won't be charged or anything like that. You can just give it a try and see how it works for you. That is all I have for this week. I will be back again next week with another episode.